Well, thank you everyone for being here. It is wonderful to see you all here gathered together. I wasn't sure you'd all make it, but boy, am I pleased to see a filled room here at Goddard Riverside. And of course, we have many others watching us on YouTube, and we're glad to have them here too. We call this Standing Up for Our Upper West Side Seniors. We are the Upper West Side Coalition of Block Associations and community groups. We're all about community. We're all about doing things that we care about in our community and for the people who are so important. I hear seniors. I hear older adults. I hear the elderly. I think of you as those who we've stood on the shoulders of, great assets in our community. People have walked the walk and talked the talk and are still here to help us. And there's a lot of groups here who work with people who are older adults, and they're going to talk to you about how they are standing up. And there are people who are elected officials who we want to always make sure they stand up for the things that we care about. So we're going to hear from them. You are the elders in our community, and we respect you, and we are glad you're here. And first and foremost, so many of us are concerned about safety. Safety when we're home and safety when we're on the streets. So that's why safety is first at this forum. And I want to ask Neil Burson, who is a director of our organization, the Upper West Side Coalition, with the West 90s organization that he leads. And he's going to introduce our first guest and first presentation about safety. Neil, please.
Thank you, Steve. Buenas tardes, good afternoon.
I made a mistake here, folks. We're going to start this just a little bit different because he's got to go somewhere and do something else. So before we do this, we're an organization that includes a lot of nonprofits now, a lot of organizations that do tremendous amount of work in our community. One of them is Goddard, and Goddard is a part of the coalition, and Goddard has welcomed us here and is part of the work we're going to do. And I want to ask Rod Jones, the president, the leader, and outstanding member of our community, to first welcome all of you here and thank him for his support. We'll get back to safety. Safety won't be first, safety will be second.
Good evening, everyone. Come on, we can do better than that. Good evening. So glad to be with you today. I have the honor to welcome you all here to Goddard Riverside, to our senior center. We are excited to co-host this event with the Upper West Side Coalition of Block Associations and community groups, standing up with our Upper West Side seniors. And so we have long been in the work of making sure that we work to enrich the lives of seniors. Is one of our 6 cause areas for which we do our work. So tonight we're excited that this is an opportunity for you to have voice, because we believe that as you get older, you know more of what you need and more of what you want, and you don't need us to stand up for you, but to stand up with you. And so this is a night for you to have voice. We are so proud to have Steve facilitating tonight. Later today, you'll hear from our very own Crystal Simmons, who oversees older adult and nutrition services across our system. We are in TAF houses on the east side, as well as the Stanley Isaac Center, further down in the Amsterdam houses and here. And so we have a large number of older adult services as well as housing. And so without, I would be remiss if I didn't thank a couple of people. The elected officials support us richly in this work. And so we certainly expect them to be here, and we thank them. Our very own Gail Brewer, Senator Hoylman, we can give it to them, Danny O'Donnell, and Linda Rosenthal. And so we will see them today. I would always be remiss not to thank them, because they make all of this happen, both in terms of direct government support and the support that they give us when we have special needs. And so I'll turn it back over to Steve, and thank you so much for coming tonight.
We'll try again. Miyama Neil Burson. I'm a director of the coalition. I'm also a vice president of the coalition. And together with Steve and these wonderful people here, Goddard and lots of other organizations, New York Historical Society, and many others, we welcome you to this afternoon to talk about very important subject matter. And I have the honor and privilege of introducing our first speaker, Sarah Frankel. She's from the New York City Police Department. She's the crime prevention officer assigned to 224 precinct, whose precinct house is located on 100th Street between Amsterdam and Columbus. Sarah has been talking about this subject for a long time. She's an expert. She knows the trends of the kinds of bad activity that's going on. She knows tips to help you prevent you from becoming a victim of those activities. And she knows how to help you if you do become a victim, what you can do about it. So without further ado, I'm happy to welcome Sarah Frankel, the 18-year veteran of NYPD. Sarah.
Thank you. Good evening. Oh, come on, we could do better than that. Good evening. Hi, so as you have heard, my name is Sarah. I don't have to go by Officer Frankel. Oh, thank you. I was going to tiptoe. Thank you. So my name is Sarah. I've been in the police department for the last 18 and a half years. I currently work in the 24th precinct, and I'm sorry. Okay. Normally I have a big mouth. I normally don't need a mic, but this is new for me. So here's a fun fact. So in January of this year, I was getting a lot of AARP literature in the mail. And I thought, oh, this is for like my mom. You know, I thought this is for really old people. And then I looked at my birth certificate and then I did some math and I realized I'm now a card carrying member of the AARP. So, so you are my people and I appreciate you. So why I'm here is, unfortunately, we have a lot of things that are happening with the older crowd, specifically the scams and the mailbox phishing. So I'm going to hit a little bit on what they are. So the first thing I'm going to really touch on, which seems to be the biggest thing, are the scams that we are dealing with. A lot of them are on the phone. Has anybody gotten a phone call from somebody that they didn't know who it was? Did you answer the phone? That's a good answer. Don't answer the phone. If it's somebody important, they will leave you a voicemail. I live in Westchester, so sometimes I will get a phone call. I don't recognize it. I look at it. It says a Westchester number. It doesn't say an 800 number. I don't owe any creditors. There are a couple of times I've picked it up because I don't know. It could be anything, and it's always the same thing. Oh, there's somebody here. I just had this recently. There's somebody here who we stopped over the border with your social security card and a lot of money, right? It's good, some people. And so I laugh. I don't tell them that I'm a police officer. I said, oh, okay. He said, yeah, and they have all of this money and they're saying it's you. So I need to make sure that it's you. So, you know, this person has your social security number. I need you to tell me what it is. I was going to dance. So I said, you have my social security number. You tell me what the number is. And then he started yelling, which is what happens to the elderly. That's what they do. They want to intimidate you and scare you. They start yelling. They start telling you it's very serious. They're going to come to your house. We've had this happen with somebody in the 24th precinct where an older woman, she got a call that her granddaughter was in a car accident. And they said, we're her lawyer. She can't talk. She's in the hospital right now. She's in the emergency room, but I'm going to come and I'm going to come get money from you. And the person went to the bank and took $10,000 out and met the person out in front of their building, cash, and got a photo of the person. But what would have happened if the guy then said, let's go upstairs and see what else you have upstairs? So again, if it feels funky and it doesn't feel right, by all means, hang up the phone. There's a new thing now with artificial intelligence where people are spoofing your family members' names. Worst case scenario, look at the phone number. If that's not your relative's phone number, start saving your people's phone numbers in your phones by their names. Sometimes I forget. I go, oh yeah, I'll put that guy's name in last week. And then I'll get a phone call and it's them, but I didn't answer because I didn't save it. So be very mindful that also if you get a phone call and it's the tax people and it shows that it's tax people, they never call you. They'll always send you a letter in the mail when they need money. When they want to give you money, it takes them 3 years to give it to you. But when you're overdue, the next day they're knocking on your door. So I've gotten phone calls. I'm sure anybody get a phone call from the Con Ed people or the gas, electric, social security, that you owe them money, right? But you must pay us in Target gift cards or Apple gift cards. You wouldn't believe how many people fall for that. We had another person in my precinct because I do the reports. What happens is I'm the crime prevention officer. So every day I look at the reports and I see what is the hot thing happening the night before. One woman, same thing. She got a phone call. She owed $1,000 to Con Ed, but if she didn't give them 2,500, they were going to turn it off. But she had to go to 8 different Targets because the Target salespeople know that if you buy more than 2 gift cards, you're probably being scammed. So she had to buy 2 in 8 different locations. And she did it on the phone with them for 2 hours. And they roped her in and she fell for it. So again, if you get a phone call and it doesn't make sense, hang up the phone. If it's important, they'll call back. It's all fake. It's all fake. Oh, I live in the town that I live in. They send mailings from their police department. That's the only way you're ever going to donate. And I get those phone calls too. And some guy said, oh, I'm from the New York State, whatever it is, Police Officers Foundation, whatever it is. And I said, oh, that's cool. I'm a cop. I give them enough of my time. They can't have my money too. So yes, that's all fake. Everything. If you get a phone call, it's fake. 99% of the time it is fake. Yes, ma'am.
Here you go. Let's make sure everyone at home.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, this would be like the Phil Donahue
Hi,
show. Like
I got a check through UPS. It was for $700 and they wanted me to put it in my bank. I did not. I called my bank. They said it was fake.
Good.
And I, ripped it up and threw it out. But
That's
it
very
came from
accurate.
UPS, through UPS,
You-
in
you-
a UPS thing.
Did you contact UPS?
No. I just called my bank
Perfect.
and they said no.
If you ever wonder, like sometimes we have, you might get a text from Chase Bank. Anybody ever get those? Chase? Yeah, with a link and you click the link and it's some wacky website. Oh, you didn't give me your social security number and your PIN number because your account is frozen. Don't ever answer those. That's all BS too. So it's unfortunate that in this time that we can't really trust anybody. And this is where my next story is going about, your personal safety. And what's your personal safety worth? And here's another story that I had. I spoke at another elderly facility and I told them, we can't really carry certain weapons on the street, but your sense of security, you want to protect that. So I tell people, if you see somebody on the street and they're waving around and running around, you want to avoid them at all costs. I understand you don't want to be inconvenienced because why should you have to cross the street? What's your life worth? Another time, a woman was saying that there was some guy on Broadway and he was flailing his arms around. And she said, I didn't look at him, but I walked right by him. I thought, if I don't look at him, he's not going to really look at me and we're going to cross and he's not going to bother me because I don't want to hurt his feelings. I don't want to cross the street because I don't want to make him feel bad. And I said, what's your life worth? Honestly, is it worth it to cross the street? Is it worth it to hurt his feelings? And if he's whacked out, he doesn't even know what day of the week it is. I'm pretty sure you're not going to hurt his feelings. Another thing, since we can't carry a lot of weaponry on the street, really not anything. If you feel like you're afraid to go out. How many people are afraid to walk around outside? Let me see a show of hands. You're all brave people. Or you're not being honest, or you don't have any, I don't know what happened there, but it's scary. Listen, I'm a police officer and I walk around sometimes not in my uniform and I'm not comfortable walking on the street. I'll be perfectly honest. So sometimes, my mother is older, but she's in a wheelchair. If you want to go somewhere, like let's say you want to go to the store or you want to go to the supermarket and you said, oh my God, I don't want to, I'm afraid. Call your friend, say, hey, You want to get outside? It's nice out. Let's get some fresh air. And I'm sure your friend probably is home sitting, well, I would love to go hang out with my friend and get a cup of coffee. You're killing two birds at one stone. You're safe with somebody else and you're doing what you like to do and you can get a cup of coffee in the meantime. I also tell people, walk on these streets like you own these streets. If you walk with your head down and you look afraid and you look scared, listen, I'm 5'2". I've arrested over 200 people. Wasn't always easy, but you have to make my trick. I have to act crazier than them. It works every time. So it's true. So that's the trick. If you see somebody coming at you and you look at them, instead of going like this, it sends a different message. If you walk with your chest out and you look at them, this is my street. You're gonna, they'll think, this lady, she's kind of nuts. I'm gonna go bother somebody else. And then you're already up the street and you don't have to worry about it. So that's that. So another thing that we have a big problem with, especially with the AARP card carrying members, is that we still like to write checks to pay bills or to send to our grandkids or kids. Who still does that? Send checks. Who puts them in a mailbox? Stop doing that. Don't do that. And this is why. Mailbox originally, if you remember, they had the big bins, right? Where you just put everything in there, your sofa, whatever goes in there. And because people were going in and stealing mail, called mailbox phishing, like literally phishing, they were stealing letters and packages out of the mailboxes. So we got savvy and we modified the doors in the mailboxes and made them very thin. So you can only really put a letter. Oh, speaking of which, I have these out front. I didn't bring enough for the whole class. One's in Spanish, one's in English. I also couldn't get any more to print because my print guys, they're very busy. So when I get more, I'll bring them here. But there's one in English, one in Spanish. It talks about crime prevention. It goes more in depth with the topics I'm not going to be able to talk about because I could be here for 3 hours talking about things, but they're out front. So what was I saying? Oh, so mailbox phishing. So they made the doors, they modified them. So they're very tiny. So you could really just put a piece of mail. It's all that fits. But then you find out you wrote a check and the check got stolen. You go, how the heck did that happen? What they literally do is and I hate these things, those rat traps, those sticky rat traps that freak me out. They literally will take a piece of fishing wire. They'll activate this thing and they'll put it in the mailbox and then whatever sticks to it, they went fishing. Yeah. And then what they do is if you wrote a check to let's say your grandchild for $500 or whatever it is, there's a thing called check washing and they put a chemical process on the check. They take out that person's name and the amount, they may add a 0 and then they deposit it and the checks will be deposited. And then you get a letter. Oh, grandma, you forgot my birthday. What do you mean? I sent you the check. And then you look at your bank statement and instead of 500, it was 5,000. So yes.
There's another thing they were doing. I had to report it to post these. The little slot that you now have just to put the letters.
Yeah.
What they will do in addition to the phishing is they will put a gummy substance on the top lip of it. So you think that you've put the thing all the way in, but it catches and they can now simply pull it right out. And I had 2 checks stolen within 2 weeks, putting them into a mailbox with, actually trying to push it down
Right.
and it got stuck on the top lip of the mailbox.
It's amazing. So now how do you send your checks out now?
I go to the post office and I mail them there.
That's the best answer, right? I know it's inconvenient for a lot of people that aren't really mobile, but that's what I suggest. Go to the post office and walk it into the post office. And here's another thing. We also had a guy, postal worker, oddly enough, he was pulled over for driving like an idiot. He was in and out of traffic and he got pulled over. He identified himself as a postal worker and they checked the car because something doesn't seem right. And they found like a trap door behind like the radio or behind the back seat. It had like 15 pieces of mail that were not his. They were checks from 15 people, a postal worker. Yeah. So the problem is too, and apparently his brother was a felon and he got roped up with his brother, but also the postal workers are being robbed. A lot of times or we just had it happen where the guy was delivering mail in a building and he went to go bring the mail into the building and someone took the mail cart and took off. The problem is too, is a lot of people don't want to call us. Please call us instead of getting out your phone and recording the incident so you can have a video recording. call 911 instead. We have a lot of that. We had an incident, another incident. A woman comes into the precinct. She said it was a grandmother, son, granddaughter. A whole big incident, family incident was happening, and the father was pushing around his 9-year-old daughter, I guess, in front of the grandmother. And the woman, instead of calling 911, she recorded it. She recorded this man beating up his daughter. What happens? The man sees her recording. He snatched her phone and took off running. So she came in, a victim of a robbery, and made the complaint. I said, I'm just curious. Instead of calling us to save this little girl, why did you record it? She said, oh, so you could have it for evidence. I said, but for what? You didn't. If you would have called us, we would have had the guy. We didn't need the evidence. So again, that's unfortunately the way these young kids are, these silly millennials born in 2000, my daughter's age, they want to record everything. So if you see something, don't be afraid to call us. Even if you think it's nothing, even if there's a guy in the middle of Broadway acting like all over the place and you think he needs help, we're not going to drag him by his legs into an ambulance, but we can offer him assistance. So if you've something concerns you, by all means, call us. We are here to help you. And if it's nothing, it's nothing. But I'd rather be there and help you than you not call me and it turns into something terrible. So for check washing, also, if you're going to still write checks, use a special pen. You can get them in the store, the gel pens. They cannot be washed. But by all means, try to find another way to mail your checks. What else do I have? There is so many things, the emails. Does anybody have any questions while I'm up here? Yes. Okay.
I was recently scammed by I'm a teacher, retired teacher. And so the TRS system was breached and
Mhm.
I was one of those people. And the way I found out was I checked my account over the phone and I had a zero balance and I knew I had a lot more than a zero. So then I end up going into Chase and spending a lot of hours. But the bottom line is check your account frequently.
Yes.
But one thing I find is an irony is on the one hand, they're telling us that we should use the computer more, do everything on the computer. But on the other hand, that's how I was breached. And so that's why I've learned to go to the post office to mail everything.
Right. I do the same thing, right? And you're obviously right. It is interesting, the irony that they want you to do everything online, but you go online, you get hacked, and then this becomes a problem. And also keep in mind, we have a thing where, let's say you're scammed and the person coerces you to give money. At that point, even though you are the victim of a crime, you willingly giving over money, the banks are less likely to reimburse you because they said you could have said no, you could have hung up the phone. So keep that in mind. And if it's a family member and you don't think it feels right, you think it's somebody pretending to be a relative, hang up the phone, call that family member right back and say, are you okay? Because somebody's pretending that you're in the hospital. Yes.
Yes, I still have my old answering machine. And I screen every call that comes in.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, if they're gonna want me, they'll leave a message and I'll call them back. A lot of times it picks up, no answer,
Mhm.
because the scammer or artificial intelligence doesn't know what to do with that. So keep your old answering machines and screen all your calls.
Right. I do that with my cell phone, same thing. And my phone goes off all day. Work calls me all the time. So I do the same thing if I don't recognize the number. And a lot of times, I work with 200 people and because I have a lot of experience and I'm also, besides being the older adult liaison, I'm also the animal cruelty officer. I'm also a peer support member. So if the officers need help, if they're having a hard time, they call me. I'm also on counterterrorism. So I'm very busy. My phone is always going off. But if it rings and I don't know who it is, if it's important, they'll leave a message. So yes, you're right. Yes. Who's next? This is fun. Go ahead. Who's next?
Right here.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, is it illegal to carry pepper spray or a taser? And if I use it, what could I be charged with?
Well, here's the thing. You cannot have a taser. Here's another interesting thing. And I recommend sometimes things to people like personal safety devices, which I was going to go into. Let's just say that you can, let me say this. You can carry mace. You can't legally. Okay. So let me go back a little bit. there's a thing that I suggest for people to have, and it's a spray gel. It's like mace, but it's a thicker consistency. Target has it on their website, but you cannot have it shipped to New York City. But here's the problem with mace. And I know this from unfortunately, personal experience. So mace is a very fine mist with pepper and grit in it. So when it gets in your eyes, it actually hurts. Every time I've used it at work, trying to put somebody in handcuffs, the wind direction always changes as soon as I pull that trigger. And the only person it screws up is me. So now I'm in a worse position than I started. So I do not recommend mace for that reason, because you don't want to be because you don't want to be incapacitated more so than that. There is a thing that I recommend, and I've got it on Amazon. My daughter, when she went away to college, can everybody hear me okay? This thing is, there's a personal safety device. It looks like a little rectangle. I mean, yeah. And if I would have thought of it, I would have brought it. The company is called She's Birdie, SHES Birdie, BIRDIE. I'm not really supposed to promote anything, and I'm not getting any money out of this. It's just something that I bought my daughter. I know that it works. You wear it on a necklace or a keychain or something, and then you can look on Amazon and Google personal safety devices, and you carry it like a keychain. And if somebody comes to this lady is, she's flailing around, and I'm like, stay away from me, and she doesn't listen, I pull the keychain off, and it makes this loud chirping noises. And 99.9% of the times that person is going to run the hell away from you. So that I recommend is something to that effect. And you can go on Amazon and you can just Google personal safety devices. If you have any questions about that, you can also find me at 24th Precinct if I forget any of this, or you want to ask me anything. And you can ask me literally anything. If I don't have the answer, I'll get it.
We have 2 more questions.
Oh, yes, ask me, Gay.
Good afternoon. My name is Carmen, and this is what happened to me 5 years ago. They steal from my account $5,000, and is that the way they're fishing? I sent to pay MetLife because I make a loan to help my son buy his house, and in the journey to get my money back, and believe me, I get all my money back. But I move like crazy.
Right, I bet.
And the first thing that I discover is that, that little box that is next to the ATM, you don't need name, you don't need to identify yourself. Just you need to make the number of the account in that check, and right away they deposit the money in that account. When I was in the bank and I talk, I don't know, the biggest manager of TD Bank, he told me this is a big mistake because the money that they steal me, they change it in my own bank.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because they could take the checks and they deposit with the account. And I even called Washington to the Bureau of Helping People with, and they returned my $5,000. I'm one of the lucky ones. The guy in the bank told me. But I have to go to the police. I have to make records. But my best advice, never deposit your check in that little box that is next to the account.
Right.
Because anybody can take your check, put the account number, and the check is going to the account number that they are there. When I asked the guy, I'm in this bank for 20 years, the guy, he said, everything is through computer. Nobody is in there.
Right. It's crazy how people take advantage. I could just say one thing. I know another question. I got a lot of help with a lot of questions regarding the AARP card carrying holders just by going on the AARP website. You don't have to join it. It also has a whole thing for fraud. There's an AARP fraud watch. So if you are a victim of a crime or a fraud, or you think you're being frauded, you can look them up, and they have a lot of information for you. So you learn a lot from AARP, all the stuff I can't talk about because I'm running out of time. I could literally.
Yeah, one last question.
I could stand here for 3 hours. This is fun.
Hi, everyone. I was compromised about 2 months ago, and I happened to be lucky because Chase Fraud Department called me right away and asked me did you fill out this check for 8,500? And I said, no, right away. And right away, they put motion into eliminating my check number, and I had to go through a lot of paperwork. But the fraud department really, I really am so happy I had that system in the Chase department, because it really works. And if anyone is able to get that from their banks, that they will call and say, did you write out this check? You will, it will be 100 times
Mhm.
better than going through this whole thing like this lady with
Right.
5,000.
Right.
So, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say one thing. She just reminded me. So we had another incident where somebody's computer was hacked. All of a sudden, this alert thing came up. Oh, call this number. They called the number and they said, oh, your bank, they hacked your bank account. Let me transfer you to your bank. They were both in on it. They took like $30,000 from this person. So even though somebody calls you and says that they're Chase, they may not be Chase. What you're going to want to do is hang up, look on the bank. But we get a lot of those where they say, oh yeah, I'm from Chase. I'm from this. And the number, it's an 800 number. I always suggest hang up the phone, say, let me call you right back. Hang up the phone, look at the back of your Chase card and look up that, well, you're smart. A lot of people don't do that. And the back of the card has the 800 numbers. Do that, because a lot of people say who's something, that there's something and that they're not. Sorry, I just took up so much time. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, police officer who with crime prevention, 24th precinct, Sarah Frankel. Thanks so much. We have been visited upon by the elected leaders of our community, as you can see here, and it is so good to have them. Please welcome the Manhattan Borough President, Mark Levine.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you again to Officer Frankel. Did she leave? Is she still here? Thank you. And to you and the 2-4. Let's give them another big round of applause. We so appreciate you. Thank you for taking all those questions. Hello, Upper West Side Council Block Associations. Wonderful to see all of you and wonderful to focus tonight on our seniors. Para confirmar, ¿ustedes hablan español o esto es inglés nada más? Hay de todo, hay de todo. Okay. Y el hebreo también, por si acaso. Okay, so I'll try to do this a little bit bilingual. So many of the issues that I'm working on, that all of us are working on today, impact seniors even more. When we focus on questions of safety, when we focus on accessibility in the subway, when we focus on our parks, all of it impacts seniors. So I want to talk about some of the things that I'm working on in those areas. Really, I want to hit on 3 things. First, we are fighting very, very hard to expand accessibility in our subways, to install more elevators in our subways. And there's some good news nearby here. The 81st Street and 86th Street stations on Central Park West are in the MTA plan for elevator upgrades. We're working on getting a firm timeline. We do not have that yet, but we're pushing very, very hard on that. Brevemente en español, ustedes saben que los elevadores en las estaciones de los trenes es imprescindible para las personas mayores y los que estén empujando coche, lo que fuera. Buena noticia, las 2 estaciones aquí del 81 al 86 son programadas para que instalen ascensores y pronto, calendario exacto no lo sé, estamos empujando para aclarar eso. It seems like that is something that you would support. That is great to hear. I am very concerned about the epidemic of scaffolding that is all around the Upper West Side and beyond. Yes. We have actually tallied it up, and there are 4,000 scaffolds in the borough of Manhattan alone. But what's really scary is if you start to look at the timeline and how long the scaffolding's up. If they went up and came down in a couple of months, I think it would be different. But we found over 200 that have been up more than 5 years, some that have been up 10 years, and a few that have been up almost 20 years at this point. And these are a public safety problem because underneath the scaffolding, sometimes bad things happen. They are not good for businesses because it blocks the facade and they're ugly. And of course, we want to keep pedestrians safe. We don't want anyone being hurt, but we want the scaffolding to go up, get the work done, get the scaffolding down. We want it to be done quickly. We are working with allies in the council to push legislation that would impose fines to building owners that refuse to repair their facade and take the scaffolding down. We are working on creating a loan fund that would allow buildings that can't afford to do the facade work to do it quickly, hopefully at zero interest, and other measures. If you have a scaffold in your neighborhood or next to your block that has been there for a long time, and we can help push with the owner, push with the buildings department, please let us know and we'll fight. Brevemente en español, los andamios. Esos andamios, que hay más de 4,000 nada más en Manhattan, algunos que llevan 5, 10, 15 años, que realmente no hay lógica. Claro, queremos proteger a los peatones, no queremos que le caiga encima nadie, nada, pero hay que reparar la fachada y quitar el andamio y ya. Y tenemos una serie de proyectos de ley para que eso se haga más rápido con multas que no lo quitan de una vez. We are pushing very, very hard on the question of e-bike safety. I know this is a major concern for all of you. I hear it. It's probably the #1 concern all of us here hear from you as constituents. We're working on legislation that would reclassify the heavier e-bikes to be considered the same as mopeds and therefore require a license plate and all the other insurance, et cetera. We think this would do a lot to bring accountability. And we're getting great support from all angles, and we'll keep you posted on that. Realmente estamos muy preocupados por las bicicletas electrónicas, que ustedes saben que van muy rápido y no es requerido hasta la fecha que tengan tablillas ni nada. Y tenemos un proyecto de ley que por lo menos para los que pesan más, lo más pesado, que tengan tablillas y todo como si fuera motocicleta, para que tengan seguro y todo. Así que le dejaremos saber el progreso de ese proyecto de ley. Finally, we're fighting for more street trees here on the west side and around New York City. I love street trees. They make neighborhoods cooler on a hot day. They absorb dirty air. They fight climate change. They help prevent flooding, and we need more. So I've joined with all 4 of my fellow borough presidents to call for the planting of 1 million more street trees in New York City, including here on the west side. You can applaud for street trees. We like street trees. And if you've got locations in your neighborhood where you need an empty tree pit filled or you just want more trees planted, please let us know. Finalmente, yo quiero mucho a los árboles y quiero mucho más en todas las cuadras y todas las calles, todos los vecindarios de Nueva York. Y tenemos ya una propuesta de sembrar 1 millón más de árboles a través de Nueva York. Si pueden aplaudir. Así que ustedes conocen de algún lado en su cuadro o su vecindario donde hace falta otro árbol, nos avisan y trataremos de sembrar lo más pronto posible. I've taken up a lot of time. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Borough President. Please welcome Assemblyman Daniel O'Donnell.
Good evening. It is always a pleasure to be back here in Goddard. I don't ever write down speeches, but I always forget numbers. So I pulled up, my staff helped me pull up some bills that I want to bring to your attention. Bills of mine means I wrote them. Isn't that a good thing? So many of you use Accessoride, which is a horrible program, may I say, a horribly run program, a brilliant idea, but a horribly run program. And one of the problems is they make you go back to the doctor to get recertified. Well, the reason you have the problem in the first place is you have a hard time getting to the doctor. So I have a bill that would change that. It allows a note from your doctor simply to say that you continue to qualify for accessory without another examination, because you're not getting younger. You're not getting more mobile, right? So let's just eliminate that. The second bill, also something that came about because of the very bad snows in Buffalo, which would prohibit the cancellation of utilities during weather emergencies. Okay, because what you had was these horrible blizzards in Western New York. People literally, they were like 3 feet of snow. They couldn't open their front doors, right? And they couldn't get to pay the bill. And then they would turn off the electricity and they no longer had heat. Is that right? That's not right. What if there's a hurricane here or incredibly hot weather and you are all of a sudden your air conditioner bill triples? Should they be able to turn off your electricity because we have a weather emergency? This bill would prohibit that. One I wrote a long time ago, which is one of my favorites, has to do with SCREE. I know some of you must get SCREE. I would like to exclude Social Security money from the SCREE calculation. Because, well, first of all, I would like to make SCREE double the income, but I'll never get the city to buy into that. But it seems crazy to me that they're viewing your Social Security, which is your money that you invested, that you put into the system that you're now getting back out, that should be considered income for purposes of the rent calculation. And so if you do that, many people who are currently not eligible would become eligible. And I want to thank my state committee man and district leader, Dan Cohen, whose mother is 4'10" of bundle of energy. And she has lived in the same apartment on West End Avenue, and she's just this much above the SCREE limit for income. And so she pays like 80% of her monthly income for rent. You know, and she has a good son and she only has one son. So he only has one mother to take care of. So he's in it. But the reality is, if that wasn't the case, she would be in real trouble. And then we've passed congestion pricing. And I've always been troubled by it because I'm afraid of what might happen when we do it. They did it in London. And either the purpose is to raise money or the purpose is to make the air better. But it can't necessarily do both. So in London, where the zone is, inside the zone, the air is better. But outside the zone, the air is worse, right? So where do we live? Just outside the zone, right? We're north of 60th Street. And I want to make sure that we don't create a system where we turn our neighborhood into the parking lot for the people who don't want to pay the fee to cross 60th Street. Now, if you're rich, if you work for CBS News, if you're Katie Couric, I imagine they're more than happy to pay the money to have you driven across the 60th Street line. But if you're not, you may think twice about that. And it is disturbing to me that someone who lives at 57th Street can drive around all day long for fun. But if you or I cross 60th Street, we have to pay a fee. Concern has always been a concern of mine. So I want to see if we could have residential parking in neighborhoods just outside the zone. So that if you live here and you have a car, and okay, I'm just gonna get a lot of trouble with the anti-car people. I have a car because I have to drive to Albany to go to work, okay? If I didn't have to drive to Albany to go to work, I wouldn't have a car. But if you have a car, for whatever reason, there's a woman in my building, she's a medical sales personnel for like equipment, right? So her car is filled with all the stuff she has to show people, and she covers Jersey and Connecticut. And so she needs a car to get to Jersey and Connecticut. right? And so there are some people in the city who need cars. And if you are one of those people and you live in this neighborhood, I think you should be entitled to a residential parking permit to prevent people from driving from New Jersey or Westchester into our neighborhood and drive around and look for parking spaces. So that's going to be very popular with the car people and really unpopular with the non-car people. And I want to just follow up on something that Mr. Levine said about the e-bikes. Today, I was on Broadway and 80th Street. I went to the gym. I felt very, very productive. I went to the gym, trying to make my doctor happy. I'm not succeeding, but I'm trying. There was a guy on a city bike, a young man, weaving in and out of traffic on Broadway while reading his cell phone. And, you know, it's really a problem. It is really a problem. And the idea now that if you have a bicycle, you get to decide that you're a vehicle for driving on the street now, and 30 seconds later, you're on a sidewalk because you're a pedestrian. It's dangerous. And many things have to be done. Senator Hoylman's here. I believe he has a bill that requires them all to be licensed and insured. I'll be looking at that come January. I'm not stealing your thunder, Brad. I know you have it. I don't know whose bill it is in my house. If it's not, maybe it'll be my bill, but we really have to do something to address that. I want to thank the accommodation. I have a medical appointment, believe it or not, at 6:30. So I cannot stay, but I thank you all for your support. I want to remind you that you live, with the possible exception of Paris, in the best neighborhood in the world. Okay. And we need to fight to keep it that way. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Assemblyman O'Donnell. Please welcome City Councilman Sean Abreu.
Thank you, Steve Anderson, to the coalition, and of course to Goddard Riverside for hosting us this evening. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Council Member Sean Abreu. I've been, for me, the Upper West Side is home. Since many of you don't know me, some of you do. Was born in Washington Heights, but raised in the Upper West Side. My mom, where I've lived for over 20 years, lived on 87th and Broadway, not too far away from here. And my mom has worked at Zay Bars for over 25 years. So I know some of you know some Zay Bars. Look, older adults are some of my favorite people. I've worked as a page at the Morningside Heights Public Library on 113th Street on Broadway, where I helped older adults learn how to navigate different softwares and computers, had a lot of fun doing it. And it really exposed me to public service. Seriously, it exposed me to public service and taught me on how to really immerse myself and create an inclusive environment. And on the council, we're doing a few things to support our seniors and ensure they can continue to live a life to the fullest. Some of this legislation includes making sure our city housing vouchers actually get paid on time, right? City government, it is notorious for being slow on making payments on behalf of voucher holders, and that's an injustice. So we're trying to make it speedier. We're also getting control of these e-bikes. There are bills at the city council level that I have not signed on to because I don't think the city is the best vehicle for addressing e-bikes. The best vehicle is in Albany, which is why I'm in full support of Brad Hoylman's bills at the state Senate. Let's give it up to Brad Hoylman, everybody. The DMV has a lot of expertise in licensing and registration of vehicles. That's why I support Brad Hoylman's Senate Bill 7587. I don't mean to be stealing your thunder, Brad, but it is very important that we support Brad Hoylman. He also just recently introduced a bill last week that would require moped registration at the point of sale. And I'm in support of that bill, but also Linda Rosenthal's bills as well. There are some other things that we're doing. The city council last year invested $3 million on 44 new vans for the Senior Meals on Wheels program, which is important to make sure that our older adults get access to nutrition. We're also expanding digital literacy programming for older adults. We're making it easier to access telemedicine and making it easier to sign up for SCREE and making SCREE renew automatically. it's so important that you get to renew SCREE automatically, so that it's not that in case you forget or you didn't get the information on time, you're not being punished for that. And I just want you to know that my office is always available to help and offer support. We're joined here by my district director, Gabriela Carrella. She is bilingual. She has a lot of expertise in case management, working in the nonprofit space. She's been with me for a few months and she's really incredible. And so if you have any questions, you can direct it to her at gcarrella@council.nyc.gov. But also you can filter your concerns to Steve Anderson, who can make sure he can get us that information. Steve, you have a lot on your plate now. Just want you to know that this month in the next few weeks, we're currently planning a technology education event for seniors at Bloomingdale Library. Last week, we brought out a free mammogram van. It's important to get checked. When we have events again in the future for breast cancer screening, we'll make sure to share with the coalition. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilman. Everybody's in a hurry. Everybody's got to go to important meetings. And we've got some people from nonprofit organizations who have information to share with you, and that's coming up soon. First, please welcome Councilmember Gail Brewer.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I just want you to know how many of us there are, because I'm also senior. And I want you to know that in New York District 6, which is the Upper West Side, there are, in terms of population, 176,000 people, but over 65 is 37,000. So we're 21% of the population and getting more, just so you know. That's a good number, 21%. They got to take care of us, right? Three things. First of all, fresh food for seniors. I think some of you are part of that program. We're having 2 more this year. So sign up, $10 for the bag on October 25th. If you don't know about it, everybody at Goddard does, or come to our office right on 87th. I think you all know Rosaba Rodriguez and anybody there to help you. Second, tomorrow, at the St. Agnes Library on 82nd in Amsterdam at 1 to 4, we're having all the technology people to answer any of your questions. There'll be people there from Oates, there'll be people there from DeRote, and there'll be people there from the public library who focus on technology. So St. Agnes Library tomorrow, you can bring your device if you have any questions, or just come and ask from security to device. And I've been to some of these. They're hugely popular and lots of questions get answered. I also want to mention that on the 26th of October, we're having a discussion about reduced fare Omni. That's the new card for the subway, which is very confusing, I think. We're doing it with Senator Harman and Assemblymember Rosenthal, and it's going to be at Project Find, 2:30 on October 26th. There are leaflets out there on the table. And I want you to know, also on October 24th at JASA, we're doing a Medicare workshop. Every single Monday from 2 to 6, we have people who can help you with any SCREE question right there on 87th and Columbus. So that's the quick version as to some of the things that we're working on. E-bikes, they're horrible in the sense that people need to get their food, but they have to follow the rules of the road. And for whatever reason, when we got these bikes, they don't. We have 65,000 wonderful delivery people. We've met with a lot of them. We even had a meeting at Community Board 7 with the folks from Transportation Alternatives who love bikes. A group of people who are very upset, as many of you are, about the e-bikes. People who, from the elected officials, Brad Harman was there. The idea is, what can we do to make people follow rules of the road? I want to second and third Brad Harman's bill that says they need to be licensed. It has to go to Albany. I have a resolution to support that. We also have a bill that I think is going to pass that says if there is a shop selling bikes, e-bikes, and selling the mopeds, many of which are illegal, that shop has to be licensed. If the shop is licensed and the owner is selling illegal product, that's a big problem for the owner. So we're trying to go at this in different ways. We also, the other day, went up and down 9th Avenue, handing out leaflets to the deliveristas. They were very appreciative. Number one, stay off the sidewalk. Stay off the sidewalk. That was the message in English, Spanish, and French, because those are the 3 languages that are being spoken. So just so you know, they are whizzing by you, but there is a lot of effort to try to stop that from whizzing by you. I just also finally want to say that, you know, there are so many, city council works on budget and legislation. And we did come up with quite a bit of money to restore some of the older adult meals and trying to figure out just generally how we can make sure that that is not open. I'm also very concerned about language access. So we've had quite a few bills that say when you get services from the city, they have to be in a language that people can understand. So you know where our office is, you know where you can find us. I thank Steve Anderson for pulling us all together and say that we're 21% of the Upper West Side. And let me tell you what the issue is for the city. We're even more. We are 14%, 15% and getting older and wiser. Thank you very much.
There's a friend of all of ours on the Upper West Side. Gail, thank you very much. So you've heard a lot about him, and he's got to go to another meeting. But here is State Senator Brad Hoyle and Siegel.
Thank you. Thank you to my colleagues for plugging my legislation. Truly, it's been a group effort. I'm State Senator Brad Hoylman Siegel, new to some of you because I used to represent from the village up to 72nd, but since redistricting, I represent from the village, Christopher Street specifically, all the way up to West 103. So it's brand new territory. Really, really pleased to get to know you over the last year. I have an amazing colleague, Evan Lieberman, who's there in his suit and tie. I think you got dressed up for this evening, Evan. I really appreciate that. You look great. You look great. And let me thank Steve and again, my colleagues for pulling this together. Just a couple of points before we hear from some of the experts. First of all, something I've done since I've been a state senator is have an annual senior resource fair. During the pandemic, we put it in abeyance and did it virtually, but we're back in person for the first time. And it's going to be this month, Tuesday, October 24th, 2023 from 3 to 5 p.m. At the Lincoln Square Neighborhood Center with Goddard at 250 West 65th Street. So thank you, Goddard, for organizing this with us. I don't know if you've gotten this in your mail yet, but yeah, no, not yet. Some of you did. Okay, thank you. We call it the golden ticket. So you fill it out kind of like Willy Wonka and you send it and you bring it and maybe you can avoid the line, but we're going to have a bunch of resources there, advocacy organizations, in-person help with SCREE and DREE. You heard that discussion. We're going to have flu shots, COVID shots, blood pressure, vision screenings, and refreshments. So I hope you can make it. Look forward to that. Secondly, another resource that we hand out is our senior resource guide, and we have copies out on the table, and we'll be bringing those to our event. So it's got a lot of helpful contact numbers that I hope you find useful. If you look through it and you find that there's something useful or not terribly useful, let me know or Evan know, and we'll amend that for the next edition. And then what we're working on, really, I do want to thank the members of the Upper West Side Coalition for pulling this together and for being a real sounding board for so many issues. I do want to talk to you about a few bills. One, to make our streets safer. You heard my colleagues talk about their issues and their concerns, and I'm so proud that they are going to be supporting some of my bills in Albany. But we know that in January of this year, an 83-year-old woman was killed by a driver crossing Amsterdam in '96. Young Kwan, she lived on the Upper West Side for decades. According to our New York City Department of Transportation, older adults make up less than 15% of our population, but represent over 45% of annual pedestrian fatalities. So there's a crisis out there on our streets that we have to address. One of the bills that I carry up in Albany that I got through the Senate, and Assemblymember Rosenthal and I have been advocating for this, is called Sammy's Law. That would allow New York City to set its own speed limits. Right now, believe it or not, the speed limits for New York are set by Albany. What does Albany know about New York City streets? Not much, I would proffer, but it's named after a young man named Sammy Epstein Cohen, who was killed just a few months before his bar mitzvah back in 2013. And his mother has organized a group called Families for Safe Streets, and they are advocating this legislation, among others. We know that lower speed limits save lives, and I'm hopeful that we can get that bill passed in both houses this year. Now, e-bike legislation, I have a little flyer out there for information about what we're working on. You know, most traffic fatalities are entirely due to cars, but we do know that safe streets require action by all users. And we need to make sure that bikers and e-bikers and moped users ride carefully and follow the law. So we've introduced a number of bills. The first, as you heard, would require the registration and licensing of e-bikes and scooters used for commercial purposes. And it would require the delivery platforms to pay for any violations. You know, let's face it, it's Uber Eats and others that we use on our phones that are making these e-bike delivery drivers drive like hell to make sure our noodles are warm by the time they get to our apartment. And it's called an algorithm. And I think the algorithm really needs to be adjusted so the burden isn't completely on these e-bike drivers. But in the meantime, we need to license these e-bikes so we know who they are and we know that they're following the rules of the road, just like automobile drivers. Secondly, as you heard, we have legislation now to require moped registration at the point of sale. These gasoline mopeds, most of them are illegal because they're not licensed. They're supposed to be licensed. You're supposed to have a driver's license and a license plate. You see them being sold at stores that have popped up all over the West Side since the pandemic. They're selling those without the purchaser having a license. We need to change that. You cannot leave a retail establishment purchasing a gasoline powered moped without a license. That's what we'll do in this legislation. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's, yeah, milk the applause once in a while, right? Third, a bill I carry with Assemblymember Rosenthal would require liability insurance for all of our delivery people, forcing these companies like DoorDash and Uber Eats to take responsibility and ensure that those injured have adequate recourse for their injuries. Right now, if you get hit by an e-bike delivery person, God forbid, they may not have insurance. And that's really scary. So we need to fix that. Just like automobiles are required to carry insurance, so should e-bikes. And then finally, we want to increase the penalties for e-bike and scooter hit and runs. It is unconscionable, whether you're driving an automobile or on a bicycle or an e-bike or a scooter, to leave the scene of an accident and leave your victim possibly dying on the street. That has happened on the West Side, and our legislation would increase the penalties, requiring that the person who leaves the scene of the crime has the same felony charges as you would if you left the scene of a automobile accident. And then finally, one more note, and this is a tougher issue, but it's one I'm leading in Albany, I'm proud to say, and it's called the Medical Aid in Dying Act. And this would allow New Yorkers the right to, if they are given a terminal illness, to hasten their own death, as is the case in a number of states around us. And why is this so important? We have found that medical aid in dying is an option that most people would never take, but having that option gives people who are suffering peace of mind. And I'm happy to talk to you more about it. It's a complicated issue, of course, for a lot of people, but 9 states as well as Washington, DC already have similar legislation. And it would give mentally competent, terminally ill New Yorkers the option to peacefully end their life by requesting medication. So this is an important one, folks, because it's all going to be something we face eventually. And we should make certain that everyone is in control, not just of their lives, but also the end of their lives. So I'll be pushing that. Looking forward to more conversations. Thank you so much. This is a fantastic group. Looking forward to more collaboration. Thanks so much.
We can put this back. Thank you, Senator. We have another elected official to join us before we move to hearing from nonprofits. Please welcome Assembly Member Linda Rosenthal.
Hi, everyone. Good to see everyone. And thank you so much, Steve, the indomitable president of the Upper West Side Coalition of Block Associations and the coalition's entire board. As many of you know, I'm Linda Rosenthal. I represent the Upper West Side and parts of Hell's Kitchen in the New York State Assembly. I've been in office for 17 years now. None of us has gotten older during that time period. At least, time really passes quickly. And so it's important to make your time on earth meaningful. And that's how I approach this job, even though it has a lot of headaches these days. And you can see the people's trust in government is very low on all levels. It just seems to have emerged out of COVID. People were dissatisfied. They had to stay in, they got sick. And now that things are better, there's still a lot of dissatisfaction with life and society in general. But I just want to assure you all that, my staff and I work really hard to make sure that everyone who contacts my office gets the best of care. And that's what you should expect from my office when you come in or you ask a question or you need help, or the same with any community issue. I am the chair of the Housing Committee in the New York State Assembly. And many of you know how I started was when my landlord did try to evict me many years ago and did not succeed. And I'm still in that apartment. But many of my constituents are facing a similar fate. So during COVID, a lot of people were unable to pay their rent. And we had this program called ERAP, which was money from the federal government that was given out to people who applied in a very complex system, who applied for back rent. So the landlord could get their rent and the tenant will have been fully paid up. Unfortunately, NYCHA and Section 8 projects were last on the list. And so the theory was, well, they're part of the city. So if the city loses money from people not paying their rent, that's no big deal. But in fact, it's a huge deal because people who live in NYCHA are living in conditions in some cases that are terrible. And NYCHA needs more than $40 billion to upgrade its plant. It's really like a small city, 400,000 plus residents in NYCHA. Here we have a bunch of NYCHA buildings, which, we do our best to make sure they're being kept up. And at Amsterdam houses, actually, there's a lot going on that is repairing the roofs, repairing the doors, repairing the elevators. So there are bright spots out there. And, just bring me your issue and I will try to get a bright spot for you. We get calls and emails and visits every day. So there's fear of eviction. There's the endless construction. There's the persistent scaffolding. There's the slow buses. There is dangerous intersections. There's delayed scree applications. There's people who think that they finally found a good place to live and the rent keeps going up, particularly in some assisted living centers where it's become totally unaffordable. But, you know, we work hard to address the concerns. But, you know, as the housing chair, one of my top concerns is housing. And it is so clear that we need more housing across the state. The governor has spoken about the need for 800,000 units. I say we need to emphasize the affordable units, because although Social Security has gone up, which is good, so is everything else. And people on fixed incomes, let's say someone owns a co-op, but they're on a fixed income, their maintenance fees keep going up. And how are they supposed to pay for that? You know, even in a rent regulated apartment, the increases in the past have been like 0 and 1%. This year they're up to 3 and 5. So it's a lot. And so if we want to keep New Yorkers who've helped make this city great, we have to make sure that there are provisions for them. And unfortunately, we also have a lot of cases where people live on the 4th floor. Now, when you're 25 and you live on the 4th floor of a walk up, that's no big deal. But when you're older, it's very difficult. And, you know, we have to address that. You know, we have to make landlords find a comparable place, maybe on the 1st floor, just so people can stay in their building, in their neighborhood, and not have to, you know, move to a nursing home or somewhere else. And that is a concern that's often expressed to me. You know, there's new senior housing on 79th Street. It's a Project Find and the Fairstead developer. So there were 77 affordable units for people who were formerly homeless or people who were lower income. For 77 units, they received more than 30,000 applications. And if that doesn't tell the whole story of what is impacting people these days, that's exactly it. And so we need many more places for people to live. And one resident at the Atria, which is a assisted living that's quite high end, someone called to say her rent was going up by $1,500. I mean, how can you sustain that? So I'm working with my colleagues in the assembly on putting together a more comprehensive housing policy that is more tenant forward, but also centers on more senior housing and more housing, supportive housing, more of the housing that will not get built unless people make a stink, because you know the luxury developments always get built. That's where the money is, but less so for affordable or supportive housing. I'm sure many of you know about the SCREE program, Senior Citizen Rent Increase Exemption. And that's for if you live in a regulated apartment, you make $50,000 or less in income and you spend 1/3 of your income on rent, your rent will be frozen. And I'm sure some of you remember when the income threshold was 29,000, and that was ridiculous because, you know, if you had 29,100, you were out, and that was a small amount of money. So it's up to 50 now. Hopefully we will increase that because everything's going up, and we need to ensure people can stay in their apartment. Part of the problem with the SCREE that we've seen these days is the city has a chronic shortage of staff in many of the agencies. On top of that, the mayor has proposed a 15% cut in all the city agencies. Now, these are agencies that have trouble filling the spots that are open now. If they won't fill them and they will have to cut, it's really going to be a disaster. You know, those who come to elected officials' office have the benefit of us haranguing, but if people who don't know and don't come, they're just waiting and waiting, and it shouldn't be like that, you know, where the city has to provide services. And so, I'm constantly writing letters and saying this is part of our responsibility. It's good to have programs, but if the applications don't get out the door, that is a problem. And I am having a screen clinic on November 15th at my office. I do it with the Department of Finance. So if you're interested, come by 10 to 1, November 15th at my office. Another issue I hear about all the time is buses. Now, I love the bus. It's sort of like a mini tour through the neighborhood, but not if you're waiting for half an hour for the bus to come. And I don't know if some of you remember a Bus Daddy. What was he called? Andy Byford. Train Daddy. We loved him. He was so good. And of course, he got chased out of town. And now he's back, but he's working on Amtrak or something. But he took the time and attention to go on a bus tour with me and constituents. And now I'm pushing the MTA to some of the advances that they've given to other parts of the city need to happen here. For example, in some parts of the city, when the road is crowded, there's some technology that makes the light change for the bus, so the bus can go forward even if the rest of the traffic is stuck. That's not here yet, and we need that. And that's something, I'm fighting for. We did provide $15 million for a zero fare bus pilot program. Unfortunately, nothing here like the M104, but we're going to fight for more free bus service, because part of the cycle has been, well, nobody's taking the bus. And we're like, well, because people are tired of waiting for the bus. So then you decrease service because there are fewer people taking the bus, but then fewer people will take the bus if you don't have the service. So let's have good, robust service and people will take the bus. It's safe, etc. I know that e-bikes and bikes are at the top of everyone's mind these days. When I first got into office, I worked on a program with transportation alternatives. And this was in the era before the cell phone. So we got disposable cameras for everyone. And the people who were seniors walked around the neighborhood and took pictures of intersections that were dangerous. This is before all the new scooters and bikes and motorcycles and whatever else is out there. We did a report we gave to the city. Some of those are still not done yet, even though they were great suggestions. But now the road is much more complicated. And I know Brad spoke about some of the bills that we have together. I think part of the problem is that the app companies are actually incentivizing this kind of racing down the street to get you your food in 5 minutes. And they get bonuses if they deliver faster. So they get more calls. They probably get a bigger tip if they get there faster, and they're competing against their other delivery people to get there first. And that's what creates some of the mayhem on the street. But honestly, it's also regular bikers. Just crossing the street earlier by my office, a woman was running, so all the traffic had to stop. There was someone on a scooter. There was someone on an e-bike. And it was, people have to learn to obey the rules. I know that sometimes I step off the curb when you're not supposed to, and I have to stop doing that. Years ago, I was in Seattle and I did that, and I got so many dirty looks because that's just not done there. And we have to change the culture of the road, because we do like people using non-car methods of getting around. It's environmentally safer, it's more healthful, etc. But there has to be more enforcement of the rules and the laws, because what's the point if there's no enforcement? So I think we're going to get there. A couple of other things I've been working on is a wage increase for home healthcare workers. And that so many people rely on them in order to stay well, to stay in their homes. Without home healthcare workers, people will be relegated to nursing homes. And I'll tell you, some of the nursing homes we have here on the West Side are terrible. And we've had many occasions to talk to patients and their families and report to the Department of Health because people should not be lying in their beds waiting for someone to attend to them all day. So it's a depressing note to end on, but I'm feeling optimistic because I think as elected officials and working with such groups, we can have change. We can listen to what people want, listen to what people need, and then enact it. It's just very common sense. And I'd love to hear from all of you. If you have any questions, concerns, always contact me. And I look forward to talking to you. Thank you.
Obviously, there's always too much that needs to be said and too little time, but we have the nonprofit groups and we're going to have brief comments from them. And I think they're really important. And some of these groups you know very well, like the first group is Crystal from Goddard. Crystal Simmons is the Associate Vice President of Aging and Nutrition Services, and she's going to offer a few words for us about issues that are incredibly important, especially among seniors and especially about food issues. Crystal.
Good evening, everyone. Are you still here? Let me get another round of applause. Thank you for staying. All right. So I'm going to keep this as short and sweet like me as possible. So as you know, you've been hearing a wealth of information, and I know that we ended on a downer, but you are all here. So that means, again, we're still running. So as you know, Goddard, Riverside, and Isaacs Community Center came together a couple of years ago. So we now have 5 sites in total. I am not saying that to say that I do not want you to come to 593 Columbus, but we are spread out between the east and west side of Manhattan now. So we have sites at Isaacs, which is located at 415 East 93rd Street. Taft Houses located at 1365 Fifth Avenue. Then I'll go to 250 West 65th Street, which is Lincoln Square. And of course, we have Goddard 593 Columbus. So we have a lot of sites, and that means that we have more programs to offer. Not only do we offer health services, we have, for those of you who have come in, we have our social services department, and one of our social workers is in the back there. Brenda, just say hello. Brenda is also bilingual in Spanish. And not only that, but in addition to that, we have our food and nutrition departments on the east and west side. Collectively, we are preparing, packaging, and delivering over 5,000 meals a week to the older adults of New York City. So please, please give yourselves another round of applause. Also, although the kitchen team is not here, please give them a round of applause. And when you see them, please thank them. We not only do what we do because we love it, at least I'd like to hope that the entire team loves what they do, like how I love what I do, but you know, they want to hear from you. So again, we are collectively battling food insecurity because, as you know, during the pandemic, these things were highlighted, and it was basically highlighted saying that we already knew this prior to 2020, but now the city knows this. And I'd also like to add that we did receive one of those Meals on Wheels vehicles. It was mentioned by one of the elected officials. So now we have additional vehicles on the road to deliver meals to, again, you all and your peers. And another thing, the last time I checked, we have over 1.1 million older adults in New York City. So there are enough services to go around. Am I right? Okay, so I know that all of you are here, and I know that it's getting dark. I will remain at the side. If you have questions, if you want to sign up, you want to enjoy the services that we have, and of course, come to lunch, please. And I'd like to thank Steve for the introduction. I'd like to thank the Upper West Side Coalition. And again, my name is Crystal Simmons. I am here, but I am spread out at all sites, but I will always make time for you. So I hope that you have a good night. Thank you again.
Wow, that's a great talker for us. Gloria Petrone is the director of the Older Adult Center at Red Oak. Some people here from Red Oak, I believe. Wish Fish, West Side Federation for Senior and Supportive Housing. Gloria, please share a few words with us.
Good evening, everyone. Happy to see you all. So my name is Gloria Patroni, and I'm here representing West Side Federation for Seniors and Supportive Housing, common known by WishFest. So for those who don't know what WishFest do, I'm here to spread the word. And WishFest have so many support for you all. We have so many services to offer to protect and provide to the community. So I'm going to share a little bit of the history of the West Side Federation for Senior and Supportive Housing. So West Side Federation for Senior and Supportive Housing was formed in 1976 with the whole idea of creating a new form of housing for those people that have the diverse needs and older adults with a special condition. Our mission is to provide safe and affordable housing that supports the dignity of each individual, enhance community inside of our buildings and outside as well. West Side Federation for Senior and Supportive Housing serves to independent seniors, those people with special conditions, people who has handicapping conditions, people who are homeless, and other people who are raising their families and have special needs. West Side Federation is also committed to embracing, practicing diversity, equity, and inclusion. Over the years, 40 years actually, West Side Federation have grown so much, and we actually have 30 buildings to serve the communities. Those 30 buildings are located in the Upper West Side Manhattan, in the Bronx, in Harlem, and Chelsea. And all of those buildings are run by WishFest. So we have so many things to share for you guys and so many resources. West Side Federation also focused in the older adult people, and we count with 3 older adult centers for all of you. Those 3 older adult centers are within the Upper West Side Manhattan and in the Bronx. Two of them in the Upper West Side Manhattan, located in the 106th Street and in Amsterdam Avenue, I'm sorry. So the other third center is located in the Bronx, in the East Side. All of those 3 centers are founded by the Department for the Aging. And we have all of those resources that you can go and have fun at the center and enjoy the benefits. The 3 centers, in the combination with the site director, we offer a variety of services, including hot meals, delicious and nutritious meals cooked every day in the daily basis. And we have a population assisting the center for over 120 people eating every day, enjoying the delicious meals at the center. So we also have fun activities, such as education and recreation, healthy food, physical health, nutritious education, health management, and so much more. One thing that I really like to share with you guys is the physical education that the WishFest Senior Centers provide. And that physical education includes yoga, Zumba, dance, Social Friday, which all of my people can tell. Every Friday, we have a social event for everybody. So we can go to the senior centers for the West Side Federation for Supporting Center for Supporting Seniors and enjoy all of the benefits we have for you. Thank you.
We're going to wrap up in a few minutes. We've just got a couple more organizations to share with you. There's a remarkable institution in our community, and you may not be thinking of it when you think of senior citizens. But Laura Washington from the New York Historical Society is here to share some thoughts with you, how it is relevant for all of us.
Good evening, everyone. So glad to be here with you tonight. What an amazing turnout. I kept saying there's no food, there's no snack, but people are here. And I can see why. So I'm glad that I was invited to stand up with the Upper West Side senior community. And because I learned a lot tonight. I learned that you should mail checks at the post office. Don't answer the phone if you don't recognize the number. And I'm going to tell my husband that because he always answers the phone. I learned about the e-bike threats and scaffolding really needs to come down. So I love learning. I'm a lifelong learner. And I think that everyone here is also, and that's why you're here, learning about how to improve things and improve your lives. And that's what you get when you visit the New York Historical Society. I don't know how many of you are familiar with us. We're on Central Park West and 77th Street, which is the happiest block in the country. We have talks and exhibitions that are what someone described to me years ago as my brain is still tingling. So if you want your brain to tingle, if you want to think, come and visit the New York Historical Society. We left the flyers out there. And if you want to sign up for our newsletter, you can scan this QR code. So come visit us. We offer senior discounts. We want you to come in. But if you can't come in, we also offer programming virtually. So you can, we do genealogy and talks with authors about current events and about historical events. And come on and visit it. You had a question? Thank you. Yes, so pay as you wish, Friday evenings from 6 to 8 p.m. And we're about to open a new restaurant, which I guess the Upper West Side Rag broke for us. October, later this month, early next month, we've got a new restaurant and cafe opening. Yes, hi. I'm not seeing, let them know that Friday Movies was a request. And yeah, did you have a favorite? Okay, I'll let everyone know that you enjoyed that. Anyone else? Well, yes?
You'll be greeted by the bronze statues of Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas on the doorstep going in.
That's right. They're wonderful. We've never heard anyone complain about taking down our statues. They're there. They tell a New York story. Yes? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. On Friday, we're opening an exhibition. It's called K Walking Stick in conversation with Hudson River School art. And so it's a contemporary artist, Cherokee artist, indigenous artist, who is giving her interpretation of the Hudson River School works. So please come on by. Oh, yes. Yeah, so we are building an annex, an expansion right off on 76th Street. It will, it's a 70,000 square foot building. It's a low building. I think it's up four stories, and it will house our Academy for American Democracy, Tang Academy for American Democracy, which is a residential program for sixth graders, because sixth graders are studying ancient history, and we're connecting them with the democracy as it was practiced in Greece and democracy as we practice it in the United States. We want all those sixth graders to know that their voice counts and that they can make a difference in our country and in our city and in our town. And then we'll also house the first physical home for the American LGBTQ plus museum, which is a separate museum that already exists. It's existed for some years to tell the American LGBTQ story, but they've never had a physical building. So we're making a space for them. So thank you. Come on out. Looking forward to seeing you. Okay.
Thank you very much, Laura. Everyone, that wraps it up. Thank you for being here. Upper West Side Coalition. Oh, we do have words. Wait, please. Come forward from Durant. Okay, I didn't realize you were, you survived all this time.
Yeah.
Please.
Hi guys. I'm from DeRote, which is right up the block. DeRote was founded in 1976 with a mission to help alleviate social isolation among people over 60 and 60 and above. We have a wide range of programs, and they are both remote and in person at the building, which is just a few blocks from here on 85th in Amsterdam. All the programs I will be mentioning are free. Remotely, I'm sorry. Remotely, we have University Without Walls, which is a telephone-based program. It has support groups as well as discussion groups on art and culture, current events and literature. And on Zoom and in person, we have lectures, concerts, cultural events, and health and wellness classes. Besides our classes, we connect volunteers with older adults in a very variety of activities. And I'm just going to list them very briefly. I know you're all ready to leave, but I think some of you might be interested in these. We have response team, which is short-term help with an errand or a task. We have seasonal package deliveries. 4 times a year, volunteers deliver food packages and make social calls. We have legacy projects, which is the opportunity to share your life story with a volunteer and express it through an artistic medium. We have advanced care planning, as well as caring calls, which are weekly calls from a volunteer for a friendly chat. We have intergenerational programs between teens and adults. We have something called Aging Alone Together, which is a 6-week series of workshops designed for solo agers. We have finally 2 programs where we would like to have more people come. Our aging tech coaching, we're looking for more volunteers, and we have trained volunteers that come to your home and help with computers, iPhones, and other devices. And friendly visiting, where we match volunteers with older adults and share their common interests, and they come to your home weekly or monthly for over a year and have developed very close and wonderful friendships. And for that program, we would love to have more older adults who would like to talk to us about it. We have all our programs are supported by the DeRote social work staff. And we also have an information and resource line that can answer any questions that people have about any needs they might have. And we can refer them to other wonderful organizations in the city, some of which you've heard tonight. So feel free to check our flyer on your way out. And we have a website, DeRoteUSA.org, which has a monthly calendar of events. And you can also just stop by because we're very close by. And we have wonderful concerts and lectures and discussions. And I think I recognize some of you here who've come there. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'm here.
Thanks, everybody. Good night. UpperWestSideCoalition.org, or write to us at UpperWestSideCoalition@gmail.com. Good night.